All right, let's just get right into it. We're going to talk about a dream that, it's grabbing hold of more and more people. This idea of just walking away from it all, buying a piece of raw land, and building a life totally on your own terms. Today, we're breaking down the real deal behind going off grid.
Seriously, have you ever had that thought, that daydream where you just unplug from the entire system, the noise, the constant bills, and just be, well, independent? If you have, you're definitely not alone. That exact feeling is the beating heart of this whole off-grid movement.
So what's the deal? Why is this idea exploding in popularity right at this very moment? It's not just some fantasy anymore. For a whole lot of people, it's becoming a real honest-to-goodness plan. Let's dig into what's fueling this modern-day pioneer spirit.
First things first, let's make sure we're all on the same page. When we say off-grid, we mean total self-sufficiency. We're talking no power lines from the electric company, no pipes from the city water supply, and no connection to the sewer system. It's all about you creating your own self-contained loop for all the essentials.
It's really like a perfect storm of different factors all coming together at once. On one side, you've got this stuff pushing people away from cities, things like crazy high energy costs and just the general pressure of urban life. And on the other side, you have these things pulling people towards self-sufficiency. Solar tech is cheaper than it has ever been, and actually getting financing for raw land is way more doable now. That combo? Well, that's what's turning the dream into a reality for thousands.
But as the old saying goes, freedom isn't free. So let's get down to brass tacks and talk money, the financial side of this journey. And this is the big reality check moment. It's absolutely crucial for anyone who's even kind of serious about this lifestyle. $25,000 to over $150,000. That's pretty much the typical startup range to get a basic off-grid homestead off the ground. Now, yeah, that's a huge range, obviously, because it all depends on where you are, what your land is like, and how big you're dreaming. But it's a solid ballpark figure to have in your head. So where does all that cash go? Well, as you can see, the biggest wild cards are the land itself and your solar power system. That's the heart of the whole operation. A well for water, that can also be a huge expense. But look at the shelter costs. Going with a DIY build or a tiny home can really help keep those initial numbers from getting out of control. And hey, don't forget to budget for maintenance every year. These systems need love and care. And that brings us to maybe the most important point. You don't have to do everything all at once. A ton of successful off-gridders start with just the bare essentials on a cheaper piece of land. They get their basic power and a small shelter up and running for under 50 grand, and then they just build it out as they get more time and money. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Okay, so we've talked about money. But the challenge is, they aren't just financial. Let's shift gears to the next critical topic, the hidden risks. Because going off-grid isn't just about building stuff. It's about being ready for the moment when your systems, and maybe your own spirit, are put to the test. These right here, these are the things that can turn that dream into a total nightmare if you're not prepared. That isolation, it can be way tougher mentally than you think. Extreme weather can wipe out your whole setup in a single afternoon. And system failures, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. So having a plan for repairs, for backups, and for your own mental well-being is completely non-negotiable.
And this is where the dream often has a head-on collision with reality. The fantasy of complete freedom from rules, it runs smack into county zoning laws, building codes, and water rights. You can't just do whatever you want. That perfect isolated retreat, it might be an hour away from the nearest doctor. And nature, it is anything but predictable. Really getting your head around this gap is the key to survival. Okay, I know, after all that talk about costs and risks, you might be feeling a little, hesitant. But don't be, because right now there are real people out there making this work and not just surviving, but absolutely thriving. Let's look at some awesome proof that it really can be done. So first up, let's head out to the Arizona desert. We've got a solo homesteader who took the leap on 30 affordable acres out there. This is a classic example of starting with what you can afford and just building it up from there. And there it is. That's the payoff. For this person, all the challenges were totally worth it to find what they were really after. That genuine freedom, a sense of peace, and a release from the financial chokehold of conventional life. All right, next up, a totally different kind of story. A family in Tennessee. They literally traded in their entire urban life for a piece of raw land, building a tiny home and a solar setup from the ground up.
And just look at this. Look at the financial shift. Their monthly bills dropped to under $1,000. That's not just saving a little cash. That's literally buying back your own time and slashing your stress in a massive way. And on top of that, they got self-sufficiency and closer family bonds out of the deal. For our last example, let's go all the way to the last frontier. An individual who went for the ultimate in privacy and seclusion on a tax-free piece of land way up in Alaska.
You know, what I love about this quote is how it focuses on something that's way beyond money. That feeling of security, the kind you get from knowing you can actually provide for yourself with your own food, with your own power. They describe it as priceless. And that right there is such a powerful reason to do this.
So we've gone through the why, the how much, the risks, and the incredible rewards. The only real question left is, what about you? If this whole idea is sparking something inside you, what's the very first tangible step you can actually take?
Well, it starts pretty simply. First, you have to define what that dream life actually looks like. Is it quiet desert solitude or a big family compound in the woods? Then you gotta research everything, especially the local rules and regulations. Then build a budget based on the real costs we talked about. And only then do you get to start the really fun part, searching for that perfect piece of land. So, we're gonna leave you with this one last thought. Just close your eyes for a second and imagine it. If you were really gonna do this, go out and find your own little piece of the earth. What does it look like? Do you see mountains? Is it a sprawling desert? Is it tucked away in a forest or right by the water? That vision, right there, that's where the whole journey really begins.